think people explicitly talk about this, but I know within the psych community, there's a little bit of hesitation perhaps that as a young psychologist you might not be taken too seriously. However, I would argue that there are so many advantages to getting into this profession early on. Hey everyone, I have made this video for anybody in their late adolescence or early 20s who are really clear that they want to become a clinical psychologist or do clinical work and they're just hoping to get through their studies ASAP. I'm going to share a bit about the challenges that I've witnessed other people face and to some extent experienced myself working in this field at a young age. I'm also going to share the advantages of getting through your studies quickly and launching into a career in psychology early on. And finally, I'm going to share some strategies to be taken more seriously working as a young psychologist. I guess the thing that is so tricky is that when you go into this profession looking quite young, maybe in your mid-20s, you might sort of feel like people don't take you very seriously, or they might think you don't have enough life experience to give them the support and help that they need. You might even feel a little bit of self-doubt, feeling like, oh, I'm not knowledgeable enough to support clients, even though you've done 5 or 6 years of study. And I know it's really common for a lot of psychologists to feel a bit of imposter syndrome. Even though we've done 5 or 6 years study, we might feel a bit of self-doubt being in this role because we want to do our best job and it comes with a lot of responsibility. What can make this really tricky as well is a client's perception of us. Quite often, I will ask clients directly, what are you hoping to get out of therapy if this is going to be effective? And sometimes I'll have a client say, look, I'm hoping to get some life advice or some wisdom. This is where it gets sort of tricky because there's an association with wisdom and age. Don't get me wrong, psychologists can give advice or they can give a wise perspective, but this isn't the main function of a psychologist. And from my own observations, I feel this is a common misconception with the lay person. Psychologists are trained as scientist practitioners. We use our training in collaboration with the client to help them learn evidence-based tools, develop a better understanding of how their mind works, and perhaps if we spot any blind spots, guide the client to understanding why they're behaving a certain way. So, working as a young psychologist, this means that you don't necessarily need life experience to do really well at your job and effectively help people. On the flip side though, it does generally take about 10 years to get really good at something. And this is for all professions, not just psychology. So again, this is where it gets tricky. As young psychologists, we do still have our training wheels on, and a client might look at our age and feel that we're not well enough equipped to support with their issues. And look, in some cases, this might be true. However, I would also argue that this is the minority. And if this is work that you feel passionate about and you know that you really want to do, then you should go for it because there's also so many advantages of becoming a psychologist at an early age. So the amount of study that you have to do to become a registered psychologist or a clinical psychologist is overwhelming, it's competitive, and it's really hard. It's also exciting, awesome, and lots of fun, but it's a daunting thing to do in your early 20s when you look at 5 or even 6 years of full-time study just to be able to say I'm a psychologist. Here's the thing, that daunting feeling, it never goes away whether you study in your 20s, 30s, 40s, even your 50s. You're still looking at 5 or 6 years minimum to get that qualification. And of course, there are definitely advantages to doing this degree when you're older. It's a really unique journey. It really depends on your own circumstances, but for the sake of this video, honing in on the advantages of getting through the study when you're young, the one that I believe stands out the most is it's a lot smoother to do it full-time and get it over and done with. You're less likely to have big adult responsibilities like kids or a mortgage. When you're young, it's also typically easier for you to be a bit more experimental with your career, to study at different universities and try different opportunities out because you usually have a bit more time and flexibility to do that. And a career as a clinical psychologist really complements parenthood. You have a whole toolkit up your sleeve for working with children. Finally, the one that excites me the most is that psychology is such a broad field and there are so many different opportunities opportunities. Getting into it young means that you can try lots of different things out. You've got a lot of time to work out what different niches you want to set up for yourself. So look, if you start out as a young psychologist, even if you feel young and you feel like you're lacking life experience or whatever it is, you've got a lot of time, lots and lots of time to develop a richness in your practice, become an expert, obviously experience life and bring this into your practice so that when you're in the later part of your career, you've developed a richness to this role because you started early on. Finally, let's look at some strategies that you can use to be taken more seriously as a young psychologist. The first suggestion is to work with a younger clientele. If you're in your early 20s, then one could argue you're perhaps in a better position to be working with teenagers or even younger children. This age group can find it more helpful to talk to someone who they feel like relates to their experience. From a cultural standpoint, being a bit closer in age to these clients probably does help you have a better awareness of their experiences as a young person. Like, what is the latest app that everyone's using, or what's trendy, what's not trendy? Having this insight also really helps you with rapport building. Another strategy, and this one isn't for everyone, is to do a combined clinical master's and PhD. I was talking to a student who was doing this, and she shared with me that what she really liked about this strategy was that she could focus on her research more during her mid-20s, and during her late 20s was when she was planning to go out and do the practical work of a clinical psychologist. And from her timeline, she's hoping to become a doctor in clinical psychology by the time she's 30, which is a really impressive accomplishment. So if research is something that you really enjoy, this could be something to consider, perhaps focusing more on the research and then moving towards the practical stuff as you get a little bit older. My final strategy, and this is the one that I like to use, is to just embrace being young and throw yourself into this work with that youthful, energetic enthusiasm that you have. Because I am still learning and I've got so much time to give to my career, I go above and beyond with my prep work for my clients. I go into my sessions feeling really confident with a clear plan of what I want to talk about. Being young and eager to learn can sometimes work to your advantage because clients see that you're putting a lot of work into supporting them, and it can help them feel very understood, which is really important in this field of work. So yeah, this video is my personal take, working as a provisional psychologist for 1 year in the field and talking to a lot of students and other psychologists. I would love to hear other people's experiences or thoughts, so please share comments down below. And as always, I hope that you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you later. Bye!